You've found Wickett on Wisconsin, your one-stop podcast for all things Packers, Brewers, Bucks, and the rest of your favorite teams from all over the state of Wisconsin. We're powered by Wisconsin Sports Heroics, online at wisportsheroics.com and the Wisconsin Podcast Association. And now, here's your host, Mike Wickett.
Yo. Normally we do these on Wednesdays, short week. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Wanted to get the reaction to the Packers and the Vikings yesterday. I have to start, though, with what happened in Waukesha. If you are in Wisconsin or you have spent a lot of your time or you're from Wisconsin, I spent a decade there. I love the state. I love the city of Milwaukee. And I could not believe what I saw, like everybody else, on Twitter and on Facebook and everything about what happened in that Christmas parade. I don't like starting the show on a downer note, but as a father, these kinds of things hit me even harder. Not to say they didn't in the past, but these kinds of things just... I mean, what can I say that you haven't already said or that has not already been said or you haven't already heard of the maniac who drove through the holiday parade, the Christmas parade, and killed, as I record this, 5 people and put 40 others injured in the hospital. And I'm sure that over the coming days we're going to sadly hear about more on both of those. So my thoughts, my prayers, my good vibes, anything I can send to Waukesha in the state of Wisconsin. It's a brutal time. A brutal time. And I'm sorry if anybody that listens to this, has a family member or a friend that was affected by that was hurt or, God forbid, killed. But it's a strange time, man. It's a really, really strange time. So my thoughts and best wishes to those in Waukesha. Just a horrific incident that happened yesterday. And it was after, a football day that it's football. It takes such a back seat to a situation like that. But this podcast is more about football than it is about those sort of things. So it's really hard sometimes to be like, yeah, that sucked, but so did Aaron Rodgers, or so did Matt LaFleur, or so did Devontae. It's like, it almost makes these kinds of podcasts and what we love to talk about, and that is football, inconsequential. But I do want to move on to football. I do not want to minimize what happened in Waukesha, and my best to those in Waukesha. On to football. Not the best outcome. Not the best outcome on Sunday. Now, I am not, as you know, if you followed me in my career or you are brand new to who the hell I am, either way, I am not one of those guys that is just going to scream and yell and people need to be fired. But there was a lot of frustration coming out of this game. And I did I think I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. The Cincinnati game looked a lot like this. The one with the 27 missed field goals between their kicker and Mason Crosby. And boy, oh boy, Mason Crosby. Every couple of games when, you watch the Packers play and they're churning along games where everything looks different and new and fast and exotic, and that you're like, oh, I haven't seen that play before, and you see that for the majority of 4 quarters. And then a game like this comes along, and this happened in the Cincinnati game where you're like, did they switch playbooks? Because the first half of that football game looked like a Mike McCarthy football game and not a Matt LaFleur football game. Go back and watch the first half of that game when the offense looked stagnant, when the offense looked like it couldn't move the football, when the offense didn't look like a Matt LaFleur offense. Go back and watch that first half. That's what put Green Bay so far behind in this game that Aaron Rodgers had to be damn near perfect in the second half just to give Green Bay a chance. Because for whatever reason, Matt LaFleur decided we don't need to do pre-snap motion. We don't need to try anything exotic. Everything, and I mean everything, was nearly empty backfield or start of the backfield, send somebody out, and it's Rodgers with a beat-up offensive line trying to make everything happen whether it's his call or LaFleur's call, the first half game plan sucked and put him in such a hole that Aaron needed to be damn perfect in the second half, and he almost pulled it off. It's one of those games where you just question a lot about the first half. The second half, I got nothing for you. I got nothing to criticize. I've got nothing to second guess. My only criticism of the second half is it took a craptastic first half to get the offense to look like what has been so successful under LaFleur for 2.5 years now or whatever. It's just, it blows my mind. And I don't understand why. No one has been able to explain it to me why at halftime someone must have grabbed the playbooks and flipped them and said, whoop, McCarthy left this on the way out for you. Sorry, we'll take that away now, and we'll make sure we get the Matt LaFleur playbook. Because there was a ton of cool stuff in there. Everything was quicker. There was the reverse pitch to EQ on the end around. There was the double pitch where Rodgers pitched to Cobb, and then Cobb pitched to Dillon when they needed it on a 4th and 2 or a 4th and 1. That was so cool. I haven't seen that before. But we didn't get any of that stuff in the first half. We didn't get any of that exotic stuff in the first half. And I don't know what it is about Matt LaFleur, whether it's his game script or sometimes his aversion to making changes on the fly, because everyone could see what was happening. Giving Rodgers no extra help was not a good situation, not a good formula for that offensive line against that Viking front. They were getting home on a regular basis with rush and 4, all right? And because Aaron, whether it was, again, I don't know if this was Aaron making the call, LaFleur making the call. We all know that Rodgers has autonomy, but for whatever reason, everything was drop back, oh crap, let's let it develop, look, where's Devontae? And I am always fine with forcing the ball to Devontae. As a matter of fact, people, this whole force the ball to Devontae thing was a bit of a myth. Yesterday, Rodgers hit 7 different receivers in the first half alone. And despite the fact that I'm very critical of the game plan for the first half, it wasn't as Devontae-centric as you would expect this sort of production to come with. The other thing, and I asked on Twitter, do you want me to talk about the Packers' hatred for running the football? 52% said yes. So when the majority says yes, I'll go back to the same drum I have been beating for weeks. When your quarterback, let's take the last couple of losses. You know, the Green Bay loss at Kansas City. The weakness of the offense was the quarterback. We don't know how good Jordan Love's going to be. I'm not in that debate right now. But we know that a guy making his first start with a couple of practices at the craziest stadium in the NFL versus a blitz-heavy defense. Why they didn't run the ball more and more, I've already gone over. If you want to hear more about that, go check out a previous podcast. Please do. Tell your friends. Wickett on Wisconsin. But in that situation, your quarterback was your weak link. Didn't run the ball against a bad rush defense. Today, we look back at Sunday's game against the Minnesota Vikings, and everybody knew that when Aaron Jones was out for a couple of weeks, it was like A.J. Dillon show. Yes, I was excited. I was thrilled. Kept hearing about how hyped Dillon was for this one. His running back coach said, A.J. would carry the ball 35 times in a game if he could. I laugh at that. I still will put the challenge out. If Matt LaFleur ever gives A.J. Dillon 30 carries in one football game, I personally will donate $200 to a Packers charity of his choice. Send this to Green Bay. Send this to Matt LaFleur. Retweet this, whatever. You know how many carries A.J. Dillon got? 11. 11 carries. And I know what you're going to say. Well, Wickett, the game was getting out of hand in the first half. Rodgers had to throw. They were going back and forth in the second half. I don't care. Again, the mindset in this game, in my mind, was going in. You got a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers who's got the toe injury. We don't know what it is. There's wild speculation about what the toe actually is. You got a banged-up quarterback who has not practiced the majority of the last 2 weeks. He had a handful of practices and missed most of them this week after being reinstated off the COVID list. And we know how bad he looked against Seattle. Now, Rodgers played a tremendous second half. He's the FedEx Air Player of the Week for the day that he had. Threw the 4 touchdown passes. and he was tremendous in the second half. But I don't understand still, I never will understand, why they don't turn and hand the ball into their second-round draft pick's gut more often. It is driving me nuts. I don't care if it's on the 1-yard line or the 50-yard line. I want more of A.J. Dillon. I want more of Mix. It goes back to that first half, man. Because when the Packers were so ineffective in that first half and everything was, oh, we need a 15-yard pass. Rodgers has to go for it every single time. He's rusty. He's banged up. He hasn't practiced. Let's let him throw it over and over again. They would get off the field. Minnesota would stop Green Bay. And then their attack would hammer the ball down the field with Dalvin Cook and Jefferson, who had a monster game, and Thielen. I mean, those guys right there are crazy talented. And say what you want about Kirk Cousins, somehow the guy puts up numbers. He has one of the top 10 quarterback ratings in the history of the National Football League, which means he puts up good numbers. Whether you want him as your franchise quarterback to pay him $100 million, if so, he's yours already, Minnesota. You've got that. But that offense can score when they're right. So again, you've got your quarterback who hasn't practiced. Your quarterback is banged up. He has the toe thing. You're on the road. Your offensive line is banged up, and couple that with the fact that your defense is banged up. Why are you allowing this formula to happen, giving Minnesota every chance in the world? Thank goodness A.J. Dillon can catch, too, because they sure threw him the ball several times, and he was effective in that. Let me get some numbers for you on A.J. Dillon to go along with his 11 carries, 53 yards. 4.8 yards per carry. 4.8 yards per carry. And he gets 11 of them. He also caught 6 balls for 44 yards. Dude had 17 touches for 97 yards. And he averaged over 6 yards per touch. Get that dude the ball. And I know, Wickett, well, what about Devontae? What about this? What about that? The big touchdown late to MVS. I'm talking about the first half. I'm talking about that first half when everything was looking bad, for lack of a better term, for the inability to describe it. Everything tilted Minnesota's way. With all those things I mentioned, the banged-up quarterback, the busted defense, no Rashawn Gary, still no Zadarius Smith, no Jair Alexander, missing guys all over the field. They always say, keep Aaron Rodgers off the field by running the ball. That's your best defense. Well, when you don't have a great offense rolling in the first half, it was obvious Matt LaFleur couldn't make any sort of an adjustment to try to keep Minnesota off the field because Minnesota was scoring seemingly at will on your depleted defense. And I realize Matt LaFleur knows 10,000 times more about football, but from a simple football concept, it seemed pretty obvious to me. Keep the Viking offense off the field. Keep Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and Cousins and Cook off the field. And you're going to give your team a better chance to win. I just don't get it. They did it against Kansas City. They didn't run the ball very much against Kansas City. There's just something. And whether that's Aaron wanting to be Aaron, wanting to prove to the world that he can still throw the ball, and he could. You saw him in the second half. He was fantastic. Aaron was great. And Aaron's the only reason that they even had a chance to win that game. I mean, when they threw that bomb to MVS, didn't you think, oh, man, Packers fans always say, too much time. But in this case, it was the other way. It was the fact that the Packers left too much time for Minnesota. And I didn't have a lot of faith. When Darnell Savage, who I believe did pick off that pass because he comes down, puts his arm down, ball gets knocked out when he hits the ground. I believe that was an interception. But I don't get a say in things. But if once Savage didn't pick that pass off, or when they ruled it was not an interception, you had to think, oh, man, how many chances are they going to give Kirk Cousins to turn the ball over? He had 3. Well, the first one, okay, legit. He got hit in the helmet by Kiki. Second one, fine, whatever. Third one, it just wasn't in the cards. Sometimes you tip your cap and say, football gods, you're not in this one for me. They marched down the field. Thielen, Jefferson was fantastic. I think if Jefferson and Stokes stay with the Packers and the Vikings for a long time, that's going to be kind of a neat rivalry, right? Don't you think? Like we always talk about quarterback rivalries and whatnot, the Brady Manning thing, and there is no quarterback for the Vikings or Bears that matters. But somebody to rival Rodgers, in this division. I think that will be a fun matchup to watch twice a year if we can get Stokes v. Jefferson. And Jefferson's crazy talented. Like, that dude is an absolute freak. I mean, he matched Randy Moss for the fastest guy to 11 100-yard games in NFL history. That's crazy good. He's going to be great for a while. I think you're looking at one of the top 5 wide receivers for the next decade. Hopefully Stokes is one of those guys that can ascend, and maybe he and or Jair, versus Jefferson for the next decade. That's going to be fascinating to watch, assuming Green Bay can keep both of those guys around. And they should be able to pay Jair now, pay Stokes later on down the road. But the Viking offense against that Green Bay defense, people use the word exposed like they're not very good. Someone told me on Twitter that the Packers defense isn't really all that good. Yeah, they are. And you can say this is an excuse. You can say this is a reason. I think a logical person looks at that offense versus that defense and the pieces missing and says, advantage Minnesota. And that's fair. Like, Green Bay went into this game a little undermanned and lost. I'm not that shocked. I think I actually picked Minnesota to win this in a pick'em contest that I'm in. I thought Minnesota would win. I thought Rodgers' toe, no practice. I thought at home, Minnesota, desperate. They would have been under 500. The NFC North really would have been over. But I wasn't surprised Green Bay lost this game. And I'm not mad Green Bay. I'm disappointed. I got pretty frustrated in that first half. And here I am on the podcast talking about it. But I wasn't raging pissed that Green Bay lost. I haven't been raging mad about a loss yet. I wasn't all that upset about the Kansas City game because of Jordan Love. And week 1, if you go way back to my writing, Packers fans completely overreacted. The national media, everybody overreacted to week 1. So Green Bay now 3 losses on the year. And now here come the LA Rams. Rams coming off a bye week. Matt Stafford knows how to play at Lambeau Field. Granted, this is the best team he's ever had playing at Lambeau Field. OBJ, who just took a salary in Bitcoin that got announced today. You got to figure out what to do with Cooper Kupp. That's the matchup. That's where you're going to watch the secondary and whether or not whoever is on Cooper Kupp, if that's going to be, God forbid, Kevin King, but if that's going to be Brandon Stokes, that's the matchup to watch. And I think these safeties are going to have something to prove, man. I'll tell you what, I think Savage is mad about not getting that pick against Cousins yesterday. I think he's going to have something to prove. I think this defense is going to have something to prove because all of a sudden now there's all this doubt that is creeping in about the Green Bay Packers defense, which is top 3 scoring defense in the NFL, or it was going into Sunday's game, which is top 10 statistically, the number 6 defense in the NFL, number 5 defense in the NFL. I think they're going to be pretty upset. This is a great test. At home, going to be cold. I don't know what the forecast is. It's Monday. Who knows what it's going to be come Sunday. I think this is a great test. They're going to play up the playoff loss for L.A. when they came to Lambeau last year. You're going to see that play where Devontae ran and then ran back and beat Jalen Ramsey on the quick throw to the corner. You're going to see that about 500 times this week. I can't wait. This could be your NFC Championship game preview. Right now, Green Bay's the 2 seed. Arizona is the 1. They've won a couple of games with Colt McCoy at quarterback since Kyler has been hurt, which is wild. So this is going to be just such a fun game, such a fun matchup, such an important one. But I go back to, this game against Minnesota. It happens. They're a division opponent, a desperate division opponent. Get back. Hopefully Rodgers and that toe, which is going to be a thing for the rest of the year. I'm telling you, take the pressure off that toe in your defense by running the football more. You've got a battering ram of a guy right there in A.J. Dillon, and we'll find out when these guys get back. Every single week the Packers are losing a Pro Bowl caliber player, it feels like. They just lost Elton Jenkins. ACL. Done. They're awaiting the return of David Bakhtiari. Aaron Jones, of course, hurt. Jair, Z. Who do you want me to... Every week there's been somebody that has been lost and had to leave the game and miss a game every single week this year. Even Aaron Rodgers. Not to injury, but to COVID. Hopefully the injury bug stops attacking the Green Bay Packers. I'll tell you what, because they can't afford to lose too many more guys, and still remain competitive in this race for home field advantage. The one team that gets the home field bye in the playoffs this year. One in each conference gets that bye. So I do again want to say that I am feeling for my friends in Waukesha. I'm feeling for my friends in and around Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin, and I love you, and stay strong because better days are ahead after this bleak, craptastic situation that happened yesterday. So we will do it. Try to have a happy Thanksgiving. Watch football, be with family, eat lots of food. Packers play on Sunday. We'll do this podcast again next week. Check out anything you may have missed, wisportsheroics.com. You can always follow the podcast, rate it, review it so I can grow it on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. I definitely do appreciate you checking and making your way all to the end of this one. Until next time, I love you, Waukesha. Go Pack, go Bucks, and go Brewers.